Okay, here we go. So my previous stream had a little bit of trouble, was dropping quite a bit of frames. So I've restarted the computer and it looks like it's working a little bit better. I also tried and put it on a lower latency. So hopefully that will work a little bit better. All right. I have a couple of photographs to edit, and I was watching earlier on Peter's stream. If you haven't seen his channel, definitely visit. He's photographing some cool properties. I'll try and add a link to his channel a little bit later on once I finish. But yeah, his handle is I am Peter, I think, or I am Peter SE, because he is in Sweden. And yeah, I think we're planning to do some stuff together as well, hopefully. So yeah, that's another kind of exciting thing. But anyway, in today's stream, he was asking about actions, if we use actions and so on. So I definitely use actions. To be honest, whenever I do videos for YouTube or live sessions, I tend not to use action just because I would prefer my streams and videos in themselves to be more of value, where I can actually explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing things. Whereas, obviously, if you use action, you press a button and it does, certain different things automatically, which, yeah, if you're doing a how-to video or tutorial or anything along those lines, that obviously misses the point, in my opinion. But I do use it for editing real estate photography. Definitely lifesaver. And to be honest, I based my actions on Brendan Watt's kind of workflow, where he basically shoots on site with a certain method and then tailors his actions and editing based on that shooting method. So for example, what I'm doing, and I think he actually did the same stuff. When I say Brendan Watts, I think his YouTube channel is called Definitive HDR Photography, I believe. But yeah, anyway, the way I shoot things, if I am not under super strict time restraints, I would shoot three ambient frames. So a bright, middle, and dark. Again, if you want to save time on site and in editing, you can just shoot the middle frame and that should be enough. Then I have my main flash pop, the key light, just shot from above and behind the camera. Very flat look as usual, but provides kind of a very nice bright light throughout the whole scene. And usually, to be honest, if you ask estate agents, they love when everything is super bright in the image, even if it doesn't look real. So, most of the time that's probably what you want to deliver. And then I have left fill, and well, in theory this is the right fill because it fills the right side of the frame, and then the left fill. So I've actually now started using a way more masks with 50% gray. The Hunter does it a lot, obviously in his editing. I've noticed Peter uses it a lot, and Gary Castle as well. Castle, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Use it as well. And to be honest, I found it pretty good because when it comes to flash frames, a lot of times what we do is turn the layer on and off, or if it's got a mask, you put the mask on and off as well and kind of figure out, okay, which parts of the image do I want to paint in. The thing is that, it's a little bit like you cannot really see it. You kind of have to look at different parts of the image, put it on and off. Whereas if I fill that with 50% gray, I can see both frames at the same time. So basically, it allows me to visualize better what I want to remove. So on this frame here, for example, if I use my brush, it's very high flow, I can paint out that hand there, and then I can change the brush to black color and then paint myself out of here. And that works really well, basically. I do find it actually much better right now. So in any case, yeah, this is kind of my basic flow. And then obviously for bigger properties, you have, parts where you light up other rooms and so on. In this situation here, the room in the back there, what I had was my, I think was AD 600, basically in the other room, just popping at the same time as I was popping the AD 200 in this bedroom. So I didn't really have to bother too much about trying to light up this room and using anything in lighten mode. But that's another option. If you do it separately, I would typically place all those underneath my main layers. So the way the action works is basically starts from the top. So I need to make sure at the top I have my 3 ambient frames, and they also have to be in correct order because they're going to be blended. So I have to start from the brightest one, then I have the middle frame, and then dark. And this is purely based on the fact that this is how I would actually shoot it while I'm on site. So I'll get the bright ambient frame, then I'll get my middle and then the dark one. And then, since my shutter speed is already much faster, I'm going to start shooting flash. So usually I'll take my main frame, like key light, the base frame, and then do the blends left and right. And after that, I can work on anything else. But the action will work first through my ambient layers. So it will basically blend them and create a single layer out of it, put it in luminosity mode. Then it will get the base frame here from flash, duplicate the frame, and so it will basically duplicate it, put one of them in normal mode, so just as it is, and then the other one in darken mode, which means that this will only allow the darker pixels come through instead of brighter ones. And then basically the action continues and puts a mask and then 50% gray on top. And that's about it. So it doesn't affect anything else. So anything that's below those frames is not going to be affected by my action. Now, if I would have anything, let's say, let's make a new layer here. If I would have, let's say this layer 1 is going to be my view, let's say a window view or a window pool. If it will be at the top, once I run my action, it's going to mess everything up because it's expecting me to have my brightest ambient here. But if I'm going to have a window view or flash fill frame, it's going to mess everything up. So this is kind of the way I shoot on site. However, sometimes if you go from a room to room, you might find that, so for example, if I'm taking a window window frame, I'm going to switch off all the lights because I don't want any reflections in the window itself coming from the interior of the inside of the apartment. Those lights will reflect a lot of times in the windows, and it can be fixed, but it's extra work. So I just switch the lights off. Now, what happens if I change the angle right now after taking my window frame? If I decide, okay, let's take the next photo, I'm going to change my my angle for the next shot, but it's still going to look at the window. I'm going to shoot my window frame first now because I already have the lights off. So I'm just going to shoot it like that. My shutter speed, everything is already set that way. So while I'm on site, this is how I would work. But then obviously when I come back to edit the photos either in Capture One or Lightroom, I need to remember about that because I'll have to change the order of the frames. Really, the most important order for me is to make sure I've got my 3 ambients first and then my 3 flash frames after that. So yeah, sorry, this is basically the explanation of how I would work. So let's run the action so you can see what it does. I've got it under a keybind, so let's run that. And it doesn't seem to work. Let me go to actions and... oh no, I think it messed up my actions didn't load up properly, I think. So we have a little bit of a problem here. Let's see. Okay, this is 3 ambient, 3 flash under F2. Okay. All right, so that's the action run. And as you can see, we have the ambient, which was put in luminosity mode, and it turns it off just because the first thing I'm going to be working on is flash. So just to save me time having to disable that layer, and it's the same for the flash base. So if I'll put the visibility on, as you can see inside we have, it's the same frame, and you can see it says copy here. One is in normal mode, one is in darken. So I can disable the normal mode, and as you can see, it affects the image a little bit different. So as you can see, if I have the darken mode, we have some nice shadows here, for example, although maybe not, it shows a lot more wrinkles, I guess. This in normal mode is less wrinkles, but this has more definition, not only obviously on the bedding, but other areas as well. But yeah, this is what the flash base is doing there. So I can decide just to remove that, and then I can put a mask on that and paint it in and so on. So it's kind of like a starting point. So these 2 layers are disabled during the action, and then I can start working on my base. Now, if I have any other additional layers, they're going to be underneath here. So then depending on what they do, I'll work on these as well. All right, since we're here, let's work on this photo. So I'm just going to paint out that little hand that was there. The rest I like. This layer being at 50%, this shadow is not too strong. It's just right, really. And then we can remove myself from here and this little hotspot here. And that the basic blend is done, and to be honest, you can just put the ambient and then either add 50% opacity, or just drop it as much as you want, or you can add a mask and 50% gray and work from there. Let's enable this one here and have a look. If we put darken, what do we want to paint anything here? Do we want to add anything? There's a nasty shadow under the light, so I definitely don't want that. And I think, to be honest, all in all, we don't really need the this one. Maybe just around this light here. I think if we paint that in, because the light is coming from the left hand side, so the shadow that was here is obviously not natural, so I'm just going to remove that, and then we can add the one on the other side. But also if we enable this darken, I can put a mask and paint in that little shadow here, so it's a little bit more natural. And that's about it. Now I have another action, which is the color correction. So if we run that, it adds a hue saturation, then color range on top of that, so I can add to my selection here. It opens the dialog box window, so I need to select the parts of the image that I want to create the mask for. So we're going to add these ceilings and walls. And then I'm going to press OK. And then it's going to also create a layer, put it in the color mode, and then put everything in a folder. So now if I go to hue saturation, let's go back to properties panel, I can drop the saturation here. And there were some selections made, let's say, on the floor and so on, because obviously we have quite a bit of yellows on the wall that's coming from the not only the outside, because it was very sunny as well, but the flooring itself. So the flooring is affected with our hue saturation. So I can basically put it in a group, add a black mask, and then I can just paint with white brush in the areas where I want to desaturate a little bit. And that lets me control it. Now again, we're doing something for real estate photography, so I'm not too bothered about, you know, using a brush very broadly. You know, obviously I'm not being super accurate. I could use something like I guess polygonal lasso tool, or maybe pan to go around the walls and, you know, make it, you know, very accurate. But in all honesty, you won't really notice anything on this layer. The color layer here, if I have any particular discolorations that might need extra work, so let's say on the sides of the image, for example, we have a little bit of a maybe like a cyan or green. So let's actually just use pure white. I can gently just tap in on the color layer, and it just, I don't know if you can see it, it's not super noticeable. That's with, and that's without. You know, there's a little bit of a difference there. So this is what I would use the color layer for. Sometimes you might want to fix something in the flooring, you know, maybe some color on the flooring. Again, this is before and after. And then obviously you can work on the opacity here as well. So really all up to you. So that's that. Then we have our ambient. And as I said, in this situation, I'm not going to even bother about adding the gray mask. I'm just going to drop opacity, maybe around 60% or so. Looks decent. I can also add curves. I can mark it so it uses previous layer to create a clipping mask. So it's going to automatically clip it. And we can add a little bit of a S-curve. Again, you can use some of the auto options from here. Anyway, let's leave it just at that here right now. I'm not too bothered. And one thing, let's put a white mask on this one. And what I'm going to do is grab a black brush, and I'm just going to remove the ambient from that sun area. Two reasons. One is that sun was moving pretty fast, so as you can see, it's kind of, they don't really match up that well. And secondly, it's controlled a little bit better. I'm actually going to add ambient here. Looks, yeah, definitely looks better with the light coming from this layer. Yeah, but again, this where the sun area is here, it just with the flash, it's controlled a little bit better. It's still, quite blown out in here, but it's good enough. And once we're happy with everything, what we want to do is perhaps create another layer. I'm going to call it fixes, and then we can start fixing things. To be honest, there's not much to do here. I know I have sensor dust in a few areas, so there's one here. Let's use a healing brush. Just going to blend that in. There's another one here. And again, it's time for me to clean the sensor on my camera here. There's another one. Yep. I've been changing my lenses recently, so I think I've got some stuff that got onto it and that definitely needs help. So we can use remove tool for this cable as well. Again, this is really what I'm doing is going way beyond. We could leave that. And to be honest, this is something I would really do for something like interior photo shoot, not really real estate, but for the sake of let's say a tutorial or a guide, let's just remove that. Let's see what it does. All right, not bad. We can try again on this part. That's better. I'm not going to bother with removing that. Or maybe we should. Let's see what it does. I don't want to spend too much time on stuff that's really not super necessary. Okay, in a way that's better. Maybe let me just smooth it out here a little bit. Actually, I might just use that. All right. And I think we're pretty much there. This is usually where I would leave the stuff. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll add color effects onto it. I'm going to leave it for now for sake of saving time. Yeah, basically I would save that as it is. And then once I go through other edits on my other images, I would basically add all of them together back into Lightroom, and then I would make final changes on them. The way I prefer to do it in Lightroom afterwards, because obviously I could use the what do you call it, the filter ACR, Adobe Camera Raw filter. I could use the Adobe Camera Raw filter on every image, but basically it's much easier if I add all the images into Lightroom, and then I can make changes to one image and copy all the settings to the other ones, and then just go one by one and make little final adjustments without having to do everything on the on every single image. All right, let's close this one. Let's open another one. Okay, so this here, for example, let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to use my action here. So the only one I'm going to use is the 3 ambient blend. That's about it. The rest, I'm just going to blend manually. Let's reverse the order of the layers. Small bathrooms are always difficult to deal with if you want to light them up. So let's do a little bit of blending manually here. There's lots of reflective areas. Obviously, you have mirror, so it's a mess trying to get things done with the Flash. But we will do our best we can. In general, it is not too bad right now. Got some hot spots and so on, but I think that's okay. All right, I need to remove myself from this area here. All right, let's say that this is decent. Let's add our ambient. I'm going to actually use the whole ambient. Let's put it at 50%. I've got curves that's being automatically added during my action as well on top of that. So just add a little bit of punch here. And then let me just press Alt. I'm going to drag that ambient on top. Let's put it in normal mode. So this is how I'm going to fix some of those areas here. Let me just use a polygonal lasso tool here. And actually, to be honest, I could just use a soft brush, but let's fill that with the layer. And at the same time, let's add curves, and I'm going to clip them just to light it up. Kind of match more or less what's in the right mirror. So something like that. And I guess we're going to add this part here as well. Just because there was a bit of a white hotspot there. I'm going to call it ambient fix. All right, that is decent. What else? I think, yeah, I don't want to do too much. I mean, we probably could, but I'm not going to bother about the hue saturation layer. Or should we? All right, let's do that quickly. Why not? Since we're so I'm just going to select anything that's really white, or it's supposed to be white. And the ceiling, I guess, as well. Okay, I think that's about it. Let me press OK. I'm going to desaturate it. And then I'm going to put it in the group, put a black mask in the group. And all right, I'm just going to do rough selections here around things that I want to desaturate. So as you can see, it's a very rough selection. I'm not even paying too much attention to try and match it up 100%. Okay, Alt backspace, I'm going to fill that with my foreground color. Then we can drop the opacity a little bit. And also if we don't want to, there's some areas here that obviously we have this yellowish light, so can just paint black here to add more of that light so it's, you know, doesn't look too unnatural. And then I could do the same here, but I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. Obviously this light here shines on that white sink and this area here, so there should be some stuff there, but I'm going to leave it kind of like that, a little bit of a desaturated look. So that's with the color correction on the whites, and that's without, with and without. So not, you know, not crazy difference, a little bit. And then finally, maybe let's add another layer, and I'm going to just remove some of the reflections here, which are a little bit distracting. Again, we don't really need to do it. I'm going to go with that. Maybe even this one here, to be honest. I don't like light reflections. They're quite distracting. All right, I think that's about it. Let's save that, and we can move on to the next one. Okay, let's run our action here. Okay. So I'm basically using both the darken mode and the normal mode layers here. Just going to remove that shadow a little bit. Yeah, I think we're fine here. Group that. Let's make some hue saturation adjustments here. Color correct it. Okay. I don't need to do much at all. And I think I'm not even... let's do a quick selection around here. Okay. Our ambient on top. So this is the example where the ambient is really... So the brightest layer I had was way too... didn't have too much... was too bright and didn't have much contrast at all. So you can see it's very washed out. It's got a very washed out look. Obviously we can drop opacity. But what I'm going to do as well is add curves. And we're going to add contrast. Just going to help here a little bit. And then let's just drop opacity. I think that looks good. Then let's do little fixes. So we don't need those switches here, for example. Again, we could work on all that stuff to get rid of pretty much everything here and make it very smooth. I'm just gonna do like a very basic correction or removal. Nothing too crazy. This light for me is a little bit distracting, so I am going to remove it from the reflection. Might blend it using clone stamp tool. All right, and I think we're done with this one. Again, final adjustments I'll do later on in Lightroom, so I'm just going to save it and we can move on to the next one. Okay, let's run our action. There we go. Okay, so this is the file where we actually have a window view. This was when the weather was still a little bit bad, so it's not the best, but anyway, just leaving it at the top. And let's blend these. All right. So the normal mode, again, I did a pop in there while the 80, I think that was 8600, that was behind the camera. And then I used 8200 in that little bedroom to light it up. So that's what it was. Okay, I'm going to use the darken just a little bit here, not much, just to add a little bit more color there. to be honest, that's okay. It's good enough. Let's add hue saturation and color range as usual. Okay, decent enough. Just going to drop saturation. I think 40% is already pretty big number. And just going to make a selection here again. Very rough. Actually, let's do it like this. And as you can see, I'm really sloppy with the way I'm using the tool here. Okay, let's fill it with the foreground color. Again, I'm just zooming in to see, how it affects. So there's, if you really look closely, there's this part here that wasn't done super correctly. So I can remove that. But really, for the most part, the adjustment to the saturation was fairly minimal, not like too crazy. So there's more stuff here, I think. Not much. This is basically the light here behind the thing. That's why it's that color. Okay, let's just settle on that. We've got our ambient. Again, was a little bit too bright. I actually might change adjustments to my brightest layer a little bit and add more punch to it, because it's really bringing out shadows a lot and it's affecting it in a way where it's totally making it very washed out. Okay, by mistake I've added levels, but we'll do with that. Drop the opacity here a little bit. I'm going to drop the saturation a little bit more. Actually, might just add a color blending mode layer just to fix some of the little problems I can see. They're probably not that visible on YouTube, especially because of the compression and everything, but put a little bit of discoloration here and a little bit here, so just kind of balance it out a little bit. Okay, I think that's better. And then we have the window. So what do we do with the window? Okay, let's just cut this stuff out. Trying to be fast here. Let's remove from selection this part here. All right. So we have to do a little bit of cutting around here. I'm actually adding inside as well. Okay, for the time being, let's just leave it like that. I'm going to work on that. Alrighty, that one's done. We actually might add inside, yeah, until I kind of add it, fill it, and see how it looks. I won't really be able to decide, I guess. All right, let's press Alt backspace. Yeah, that's very dark, very, very dark. All right, so I'm going to add the flooring. So let's make a quick selection here, here. And here. Okay. Now I'm going to add curves, and I'm going to create a clipping mask, which should just actually we don't need a clipping mask because we have the selection active. If I press OK, it's going to create curves adjustment layer from that selection. So now we have that. So first of all, let's add, and to be honest, that already fixes things quite a bit here. But I'm going to duplicate it, and actually let's delete the mask and just add a black mask on top. And I just want to brighten up maybe the buildings and the flooring a little bit more. Maybe some parts here. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like that. We have some dark stuff around here as well. You could see the feathering. Okay, that's not okay. Let's add everything into a group. I'm going to copy the mask. So if I press Alt and then drag, I can copy the mask. And now that we have that, if I'll go to Filter, Other, and a Minimum. Let's see. Let's removing these already. So, okay, another example, let's say 1.5 seems to be decent. 1.6. Okay. So we're kind of removing those black lines. There's a little bit here. Again, I can just go with the selection tool. But to be honest, you know, it's really not worth it. It's not a interior design photo shoot or anything like that, so we don't have to worry about that too much. I'm kind of tempted to see. Let's see. Let's copy the blue channel. And let's apply mask to that. So I'm just going to be, I think, replacing the sky. So actually, we don't need that. Okay. So I'm going to do maybe old-fashioned way, which is going to be faster than dealing with all the blue channel and so on. Let's make a selection just around the kind of the sky area. The reason why I'm going to take this route here is because I don't even know if the sky replacement will look that great here. So I don't want to waste too much time trying to make it perfect. And then find out that after replace the sky is actually not that great, and let's use the original one. So I'm just doing rough selections around the stuff here, buildings and so on. That's another thing I like to use the color range tool for. This is where you want to get the range down, and then you can decrease the fuzziness. So this method is a little bit sloppy when it comes to replacing the sky. There's some details that we'll be losing probably. But I'm just adding a black mask on the selection and see if I can, let me see if I can get a sky. One moment. Trying to see if we have something where the sun is more on the left-hand side, because that's where the sun was. Okay, you know what? Let me just try a blue sky here first. Those blue skies are very kind of neutral, so there's like, you don't really have a very good indication where the sun is. I think here maybe it's from the right. Not 100% sure. First, let's try and fit that in. We can always flip horizontal and see if we like it better. I think this is kind of, on this one, the sun is coming from the left-hand side or the right-hand side as it was, but once I flipped it, now it's where it is. I think I'm going to leave it like that. And That's at curves. Yeah, I mean, with the sky at least looks a little bit nicer in a way. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's leave that replacement in. Anyway, estate agents like the blue sky replacements. All right, that's saved. Let's see what we have there. Next one. So I'm going to run the action. Sorry, not auction, action. Okay, the window frame is here. Let's move it to the top. Okay, so that's our basic blend. So I'm going to use the darken here where we have this kind of a hotspot, which I don't particularly like. I think I'm not going to use this one. The flat, it flattens the image a lot. There's some brighter areas, but to me, I think it flattens it too much. So let's say I'm happy with that. Let's add here. Oh, actually, there is one thing we need to add. So if we go to the normal blend, let's enable it. And actually what we could do is just put it in lighten mode, to be honest, because I'm going to be painting in the room in the back there. So one thing I like by using two lights on site is that your lighten mode works much better. So typically if you use one light and you have this scene and we want to light up that room, so let's say everything around here becomes dark because you're just using flash inside that room, so only that room lights up. When you put it in the lighten mode, it's going to create a lot of those discolorations, because I think in those areas where the dark layer meets the lighten layer, there's some pixels are going to be very close. There's like a gradient between the dark and the light one, and I think that's where it creates a lot of those color problems. So if I have my base flash frame which is lit up fairly well, if I'm going to add the pop in the back, if I use it here in the lighten mode, I don't see any problems with the discoloration or anything like that. So that's kind of a one thing I like about that. So yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. Now we have our hue saturation. Just going to add, okay, the fuzziness from the last time is there. So I'm just going to extend the range a little bit. And let's select white. Anyway, everything's kind of white here. Yeah, I think that's all right. Let's press OK. Drop it to my 40, 50 or so. Put it in a group, add a black mask, and then I'm just going to paint with white roughly where I want this to work for us, and desaturate. As I said, for this you can be really like sloppy. I've got a soft brush. The desaturation is not crazy, so that creates a fairly good gradients. Okay, for the ambient, what do we do? I think we can just really drop the opacity to the to the default 50%. Let's add curves. I'm going to increase here where you see that spike here. That's where the brighter or the most of the pixels are. They're quite bright here, so I'm going to light that up. That kind of blows out this area here, but for that I'm just going to paint with black on that curves adjustment layer here a little bit, just so it doesn't affect that part as much. And I think, you know what, I think we're gonna cut out the whole thing kind of. Yep, sorry. I had to sneeze and had to temporarily disable my mic and then had trouble putting it back on. All right. I'm going to actually select everything that's around here. And I'm going to see if we can work using curves. So let's fill it with foreground color. And we might want to add this part here as well. All right, so first let's add curves number 1 to lighten it up. Okay. So I'm kind of looking at the inside and it looks decent. Yeah, I think that's okay. Might create another adjustment here and darken a little bit and then do an S shape. So we're going to put that in the group disable, and where I want to add it is around the buildings, just to have a little more definition there, contrast, so they can be visible. So that's one. And yeah, to be honest, I think that's it. Let's put everything inside a group. I'm going to add a white mask, and I'm going to take a black brush, and we have this kind of the hard line here. So I'm just going to blend it out a little bit. All right. And I guess just like with the previous one, we could probably put everything into a group and make a rough selection for the skies. All right, color range, and let's make the selection here. Should we use the same sky? Let me see. Maybe I can find something else. Let's see this one. Okay, that actually looks quite realistic already here. Do we want to add the twilight thingy? Probably not. Maybe like a little bit here. But yeah, I think that looks decent. Just going to add this little thing here by gently blending it in. Again, this is like I probably wouldn't bother about it too much. Right, I think that looks decent. Again, I'm going to do final adjustments later on in Lightroom, but for purposes of this editing, this is done. All right, another one to go. So let's run my action. And okay, I had some extra stuff here, so I'm actually going to put it on top. We're going to add it later on. So let's do our blend here first. Remove myself from there. It's a little bit dark, but I think we can probably, let's try and fix these. There's some areas here that are a little bit annoying. Okay. Okay, darken first. Yeah, I'm gonna darken the couch. Add a little bit of the shadow here. It's not like crazy needed, but I kind of like it. All right, so that's our main flash in normal mode. So that's going to fix our kitchen area here for one. And then, yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe this area. Okay, for the time being, let's add a mask. Just adding a little bit there. Okay, that's decent. So this is in lighten mode. Let's see, screen. I think we'll do better here, to be honest. As I was saying, we can add curves and drop a little bit of midtones or around here, and that tames this whole thing a little bit, and then just going to gently add it on. Anyway, to be honest, naturally this area over there should be darker, so let's see, use a little bit of a lighten mode here. And we have that. So yeah, this one will have to be in screen mode. This is basically just for the ceiling there a little bit. Okay, so that's about it. Let's add hue saturation, our usual stuff with color range. Go through that. Okay, happy with that. Dropping to around 40, 50. Put it in a group, double mask it basically. And I'm just going to paint over the ceiling and where the chairs and the wall is. That's about it. Our ambient. Let's drop it to 50%. Why not? Add curves. Add a little bit of a punch. Okay. I think that is decent enough. Just wondering if I think we have a little bit of discoloration in the corner here. Again, probably my lens really. Let's do a little test. Greens. Okay, there's quite a greens there. Let's drop it a little bit and then cyan. Yeah, we have those cyans there in the corner. Okay, drop it a little bit as well. So that's just like an extra color correction. And this is going to be our fixes. And let's remove the camera. The remove tool has been such a help. I mean, it works really, really well, especially for removing camera. I mean, it's been helping a lot since this thing was introduced in Photoshop. And very rarely I need to go back into, manually removing stuff. Even like here, I can just paint this stuff in again, let it work on it if I'm super lazy. All right, good enough. I think I'm just going to remove that, actually, this part, distractions. We don't really need to see that there. I mean, we could remove that line, I guess, should we? Maybe. Blend it a little bit better. All right. Yeah, for our purposes, this is pretty much done. So let's just save that and move on to the next one. So let's run our action first. We have the window. So I actually took several different window frames here, so we can play with that later on. Instead of using curves, we can kind of use each separate layer. But let's start with our flash base. got a couple little problem areas there. So let's see. Okay, I'm just going to use darken very gently here. I don't want to remove the whole lighting from here, but remove it a little bit, and maybe in the kitchen as well, just because the darker one seems to be giving it a little bit more nicer color. And then we're going to use the normal mode to kind of tame this area here. And then the kitchen spot there. And yeah, this is our flash blend here. Going to add curves. Okay, I'm not going to mask in ambient. I'm just going to drop to 50%, and let's add curves. Okay. I think that's about it. I'm just looking at the lights. I'm thinking if we should remove the ambient from here just to make the lights a little bit more color. All right. All right, let's cut into the views. So I am going to basically cut into the whole thing. I think including this table. Okay, let's leave it out for a second. I'm going to maybe paint with a soft brush later on. The thing here is at least that here the weather got a little bit better, so the I don't need to replace the sky. The sky looks pretty decent here. Not sure exactly where to cut it, but I think we're just gonna cut at the black line here. Okay, just for the sake of doing everything, let's add this bit in there as well. Okay, we actually don't need that, just from here. All right, so let's fill that in. And to be honest, that already looks, I think, all right like that. In terms of like just looking at the view, estate agents probably would love it. It's a little bit too dark, even though this is the brightest, brightest frame. Even though it's a little bit too dark, I think estate agents would like that type of look. Yeah, I think I am going to add this table. I'm adding the whole, basically the whole thing here. It's going to be way too much, but I am going to deal with that later. So I'm going to do it that way. Then I'm going to press Alt and drag the mask onto the other ones. Let's put the brightest one at the top. I'll leave the other ones for a second. I'm going to press Control so I can make a selection of my mask. I'm going to add curves. And I'm going to brighten this up. So what I want to brighten up is basically the more of the stuff inside, maybe the buildings a little bit. So before, after, as you can see, is just a bit brighter. Then we have this one here. So again, let's make a selection. So control click on the mask. I'm going to add curves. And let's see if we can add like a contrast here. Put it in a group, hide the group, and then paint in a little bit where the buildings are. Again, just adds a little bit of contrast there. And then the final one, again, I'm going to press Control on the mask, add curves, and I probably want to also add a little bit of contrast. All right, put in a group, add the black mask, and I'm just gently going to paint in at the top. And arguably still a little bit too dark, but for an estate agent and for the owner of the property, he actually wanted to have the view very visible, because in theory that's, you know, the selling point. Again, I can add another curves on top. Oops. Let's group all the window views together. Let's just call it window. I'm going to attach the curves or clip the curves. And here again we can play a little bit, maybe make it a little bit brighter. And one other thing, again, we probably don't really need to do it that much, but let's add color balance. I'm going to clip it as well. And I think we're going to look at the highlights and midtones. I think there is a little bit too much magenta. So I'm just going to ease off on the magenta a little bit. And let's go to highlights. I think highlights more or less are okay. Maybe add a little bit more blue, I think. Actually, yellow looks nice and warm, so we might leave it at that. So this is before and after. Maybe there's a little bit too much yellow. You have to be very careful with this stuff. like okay, anyway, I'm not going to bother too much about fixing this stuff like crazy. I think we are done here. I'm just looking at basically the walls and thinking if I should desaturate them or not. And I think I kind of like it's the color cast is natural in a way, and especially because it was like quite sunny. But if I'm thinking from a standpoint of an estate agent, they probably would look at that and prefer it to be cleaner. So for the sake of that, let's add a hue saturation layer, make a selection. Looking for the ceilings, walls. Okay, anyway, we don't have to worry about it too much. Let's press OK. And drop the saturation. 40% looks decent. Let's add a black mask. I'm gonna paint it in. Okay, that's it. Final adjustments I'll do in Lightroom, so let me just save that. And yeah, this is where I'm going to stop. We're at 1 hour 28 minutes for the stream right now, so I think that's enough for the time being. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you were able to catch one or two things that maybe you didn't know or you found useful to your own method and type of editing you do. Thanks for checking out. I've got more videos on my channel. More will be coming soon as well. At the moment, I'm doing more of live streams. However, I do have a couple of videos that I'm working on. One was actually me shooting directly at a property, doing a little bit of explanation using Flash on site, and then the editing after that in Lightroom and Photoshop as well. But it requires a lot of editing, so it's going to take a moment before I can post that. However, look out for that if you're interested. That should be coming at some point. Okay, thank you again, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.